I have been married for 7 years now, and the past few months have been the worst of my life. I have a child who isn't from my husband. No, I didn't bring the child to the marriage. I had it while married to my husband. I know you'll like to know what happened, so here we go. It all started during the pandemic. My business was in the hospitality sector, so it decimated my business, and it wasn't able to recover. My only means of making money was no more, and I have to rely on my husband for financial support. I have spent years building the business, and it took just a few months for everything to collapse. It brought a lot of strain in our relationship as I didn't think my husband was emotionally supportive enough. And to make matters worse, I was now a stay-at-home mom, and my husband is now working a lot more to support us. I was home all the time, and my husband was at work. During this period, I was bored and I told my husband that we should have a baby. I have been putting it off for a while because I was trying to build my business to a certain level, but now with all the free time I have, it would be great for us to have a family. My husband rejected the idea, saying that we are not in the financial position to add another member to the family. From then on, intimacy dried up. I will try to initiate it any chance I get, but he would try as much as possible to not finish inside me. To make matters worse, he changed his shift to night shift without getting my approval. We normally discuss things like this. When I confronted him, he said that the shift differential pay was substantial and would benefit us. He said he didn't tell me because he thought I wouldn't understand. I thought he changed to night shift as an excuse to come home less often, but the time he gets home I was already in bed. Then he would leave the house for work and return 2 days later. When I call his phone, he would say that he is picking up extra shift. It got to a point where it started becoming normal. Sometimes he would return at 6 a.m., take a shower, and leave the house again. Where he went, I never know. I would ask him, and he would flat out lie to me, and sometimes become hostile, and he didn't think it was a good idea to tell his wife where he was going for days. Our marriage slowly deteriorated. We were married but lived our separate lives. He treated me as if I was merely his roommate and not the woman he stood before God and vowed to love and cherish. As luck would have it, I finally got him to knock me up, but unfortunately, I miscarried. I blamed him for it, and I endure his emotional abuse and the pain going through the miscarriages alone. I was constantly worried about him and what he was doing. I thought he was having an affair, and I was wondering who he was doing it with. Which women was he staying with when he wasn't in bed with me? The few times he offered any explanations, they were see-through lies. I felt grossly disrespected by the lack of regard for the sanctity of our marriage. To add salt to injury, he started controlling how much he gives me and limit my access to his bank account. I had to beg him for money, so I started arguing with him less because of the fear of being pushed out of the house if I stood up to him. So, I left him to his own vices. I stopped calling him when he wasn't home. I stopped demanding explanations for his absence. I stayed put and observed his going out and coming in as though he was not committed to me in any way. He lived like a shadow, going through walls and passing through the locked doors of our house without any restriction. Our washer broke down in our house, and I told my husband that it needs to be fixed, but he kept telling me that he forgot. I reminded him for a whole month, and he didn't do anything about it. Most of the clothes that I wash belongs to him, and he would complain about it not being washed even though I had already reminded him that our washer was broken. Instead of continuously arguing with him about it, I took his clothes to the local washateria. While I was waiting at the laundry for my clothes to wash, a man approached me and struck a conversation with me. He was very friendly and good-looking. I saw a ring on his finger, so I didn't think that he was hitting on me. When I mentioned that I am looking for a job, he told me that his job was hiring. He works as a field technician. He said that there was a recent job opening for the front office people, and any attractive woman that could answer the phone is qualified. He said that the job pays well and there are a lot of candidates, but he had a good relationship with the manager, and he will put in a good word for me. I was happy and thanked him. He told me that he can come over later to fix my washing machine. We exchanged numbers and went our separate ways. When I got home, he continued to text me. I invited him to come over to fix the washing machine. After he fixed the washing machine, we had sex. From then on, we were having sex regularly when my husband wasn't home. Few weeks later, with his help, I got the job. The job was very demanding, and I barely had time for myself. It was good for me. It kept me grounded and put something in my bank account to be able to cater to myself. By the time I closed from work and got home, I was too tired to be sad about the empty cold space beside me on the bed. I didn't even have time to think about him and where he was. We were just roommate, and when I needed intimacy I have someone begging to satisfy me. There were nights I'd wake up and find him lying beside me. Those were rare cases, but I got used to it. One day I told him, "You treat me like I have nowhere to go. Like I'm stuck to you forever no matter what. You think I will never leave you, so you treat me however you want. I don't know what this is, but it is not marriage. I've seen marriage before, and I know what it looks like. What you're giving me is only a pale shadow of what marriage could be. I want a divorce." He scoffed, "You want a divorce? Where will you go then?" As if she has what it takes to stand on her own feet. He was right. I had just started working and I didn't have enough money to move out and get my own place. I decided I would put up with him till I saved enough to leave. These are the things a woman without her own money goes through in a marriage that's going nowhere. You can't stay and you can't leave. Everything in you will scream, leave for your own sanity, but you'll look at the emptiness of your purse and postpone your leaving. I'll eventually go, but not today, you will tell yourself. When I was talking divorce with my husband, me and the other man were still intimate. He was married, so it was easy for me to confide in him. I wasn't looking to be with him or replace his wife. We were just friends with benefit, and I can pour out my complaint about my husband to him. I talked to him like I was talking to my husband's brother. "Have you seen what your brother has done? Can you believe he left home 3 days ago and I haven't heard from him? He doesn't even pick up my calls." I was very lonely, and I couldn't talk to anyone about my marriage. I'd kept the loneliness and the pains inside of me for far too long that when I finally found a listening ear, I poured everything on him like the way waterfalls fall from the rocks. This man seemed very mature and attentive. He listened to my sad stories and made me feel safe. So, I talked to him about everything. He often said to me, "If you need my help with anything, don't hesitate to ask me." It was very comforting knowing that I had someone in my life who would show up for me if I needed him to. I'd been with a man for so many years and he had never said that to me. After months of having an affair with him, we started becoming too close for comfort, so I tried to distance myself from him and keep our conversation only work-related. That was easy to do because he works in the field, and I work in the office, so our interactions were limited. The guilt of our affair weighed on me so much that it affected our friendship. We started having issues here and there. Little things generated into huge fights. I couldn't in good conscience carry on with the friendship as if we both didn't break our marriage vows. 8 weeks later, I found out that I was pregnant. We barely talked at the time, but when I found out that I was pregnant, I called to tell him, "Hey, I'm pregnant and it's yours." He didn't believe me. "How can you be pregnant? How can it be mine when you leave with your husband?" I told him, "It couldn't be my husband's. We haven't done it for a while. You were my last." He said, "Well, then you know what to do. We can't have it. Just get rid of it. You know I am a married man. This will ruin my family." I told him I'll handle it and he believed me. I had been trying to have a baby since I got married. I'd gone through a series of miscarriages that left me broken and in pain. There was no way I would let these go, so I kept it. I went to my husband and told him I was pregnant. The dates didn't add up and he tried to say it wasn't his, but he was not too sure about the dates we did it. I looked at him and said, "Just because you are cheating on me doesn't mean I am doing the same thing. If it's not yours, then who is it from? God has given us a chance to be parents and you are here doing the math?" He didn't talk again. After the baby was born, my husband turned about 360 degrees to a different man. He became the original man I got married to. He was more attentive to me and was very caring. It was like our marriage was on hold before and it just carried on from where it left off. He was more loving now that we have a baby than he had ever was. I began to feel guilty for cheating on him. I began to have second thought about my affair with the other man. The other man found out that I was keeping the baby when he saw it growing. We made it a point not to talk about it. It was going to be our big secret and he was going to take that secret to his grave. When it came time for me to return to work after my maternity leave, I quit the job. When the other man found out that I quit the job, he called me and I told him that my husband has changed and I am now happy in my marriage. He said he wanted us to meet up and I refused. After 3 days of refusing to answer his phone calls, he began to tell me that he was now in love with me and was coming to claim his baby. I immediately panicked and called him back. I called to ask him if he was out of his mind. Wasn't he the same person that was telling me to get rid of the baby now that the baby is born, and my husband is now stepping up to the plate? He is trying to ruin my life. I reminded him that he himself is also married. What if his wife finds out? He said she wouldn't. I told him that he was playing with fire and should stop calling me before he ruins our life. Can you believe that this man continued to call me? I felt miserable. I will be sleeping with my husband and my phone will be buzzing. Many things were unfolding that give me sleepless nights. I was having nightmares of my husband finding out and stabbing me to death. I was more in love with my husband more than ever, and when he is not at work, we are always at each other's side. After changing my number, I didn't hear back from the other man until my son was 2 years old, when he shows up at my door when my husband was at work. He said that he wants to be in his son's life. I cried and pleaded with him to go away and find another woman. I told him that he is a man and can make countless babies. I pleaded with him to not destroy my life. After he left, I thought I wouldn't see him again. That evening I was making dinner for my husband so dinner would be ready when he gets back home. As soon as we got home that day, all hell broke loose. He came home hollering, calling me a cheater. I was scared to death. I knew I have been ratted on. He accused me of cheating on him and deceiving him for 3 years. He went into the room where my son was and I followed behind him thinking he was going to do something crazy. He hugged my son and started to cry. I have never seen him crying like that in our 7 years of marriage. He asked me why, and I told him that it was all those years when he neglected me. He forced me to the arms of another man. I told him to forgive me and that we can start over. He accused me for knowingly allowing him to bond with my son even though I knew he wasn't his. I was remorseful. I told him to do whatever he wants to do to me, and I deserve it, but that I didn't mean to deceive him, and it just happened. He didn't sleep in the house that night. He left, and I never saw him for 3 days. On the 4th day I was served with a divorce paper. I have no job, no money for a lawyer, and no money to take care of my son. I understand that he is not his biological son, but still, how could he just abandon us like that? His name is on the birth certificate, and he has been the father for 2 years. I felt like we could have made things work, but he wouldn't get over the fact that the boy wasn't his. I wanted to get a paternity test, but deep inside I knew that it wasn't my husband's child. The child's nose and his eyes look exactly like the other man. After I was served with a divorce paper, I decided to go after the man that destroyed my life. I knew where he lived, so I went there to wait till his wife came home. I was in my car waiting till he got home without his wife. After casting his house till 12 midnight, it was obvious that he lives alone with no wife. I did a background check on him, and to my horror I found out that his wife left him with his kids right about the time he started threatening to expose our secret. It made me sick to my stomach about how selfish he is. Now that my husband is filing for a divorce, he refuses to support me financially, and I couldn't go back to work because I had nobody to take care of my son. Most of my family members had their own responsibilities, and my parents are deceased. I was left with no other option but to file for child support against the other man. I also filed for back payment since the child was already 3 and he never contributed to his well-being. After the other man found out that I was filing for child support, he came to my house angry. I guess he thought I would move in with him and my son. I told him that he had destroyed my life and I will never move in with him. I told him that he will know no peace till our son is 18, and I will do whatever it takes for him not to see our son. He said that I was being cruel to our son, and with time I will come to appreciate what he did. Come to find out, he has 6 other kids with 2 other women, from his recent wife, and she will be trying to put him on child support as well, after they are officially separated. If that happened, the financial assistance I would be getting is a fraction of what is required for his upkeep and daycare. I would be forced to take care of my son all on my own.